My fiancée sent me a message. She meant for her mom. Don't worry, once he pays off. Best read it, it happened on a Tuesday. I was in my home office wrapping up some work when a notification popped up on our shared tablet. It was a text message, synced from my fiancée Claire's phone. We rarely use the tablet. It mostly just sat on the charger, but for some reason I glanced at it. The message was from her mom. Her mom? Any luck getting him to talk about the loans? And then a new message. From Claire. A reply that just popped up right as I was looking. Not yet. He's avoiding it. But don't worry, I'll get him to agree before the wedding. Once he pays them off, I'm gone. I just stared at it. The words didn't seem real. It was like my brain just refused to process them. I run my own architecture. Firm. My entire life is about details, about how things fit together, and this one sentence just took a sledgehammer to the entire structure of my life. Gone. Once he pays them off, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. A cold, simple, brutal plan. My first thought was just white-hot rage. I wanted to pick up the tablet and throw it through the wall. I wanted to walk into the living room where I could hear her laughing, at some show on TV, and just unleash hell. But then something else took over. A weird, icy calm. This wasn't something you scream about. Screaming is what you do when you're trying to save something. This thing was already dead. All that was left was the demolition. I took out my phone and took a picture of the tablet screen. I emailed it to myself. Then, I went back to the message thread on the tablet and just kept scrolling up. She'd been careless, so sure that her quiet, predictable fiancé would never think to look. It was all there going back months. A carefully orchestrated plot masterminded by her mother to get me to pay off her $150,000 in student loan debt from her art history degree. There were texts from her mom. I'm coaching her on what to say, how to act. Don't be aggressive about it. Make it about our future. Tell him you can't feel settled until you're both Debtree as a team. Cry a little if you have to. He'll feel guilty. And Claire's replies, he's so focused on the wedding planning. It's the perfect distraction. I almost feel bad sometimes. He's a good guy. Followed by her mom's reply, don't feel bad. Feel smart. This is for your future, not his. The one that really got me was about what came after, but what do I do after? It'll be obvious if I leave right away. You stay for a year, make it look good, then you say you're unhappy, you've grown apart. By then, the money is gone. The loans are paid. You walk away free and clear. It's a perfect plan. A perfect plan. For 2 years, I thought we were building a life. She thought she was executing a heist. I closed the message app. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. My hand was perfectly steady as I poured a glass of water. She was still on the couch. "Hey, babe," she said, not looking up from the TV. "You okay? You're quiet." "Just thinking about a project," I said. My voice sounded normal. It was the calmest I had ever felt. She thought she was playing chess and that I didn't even know there was a board. She had no idea I had just seen the whole game, every move she was planning to make, and I was about to flip the table over. Update 1. The 2 weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation would lead to denial, fake tears, and promises to change. It would be messy. I don't do messy. I do clean, precise, and final. Thank you for all the comments on my first post. A lot of you said to play the long game, but I couldn't. Every moment I was in the same house as her felt like a lie. My plan had to be fast and brutal. First, I documented everything, every text message. I also started looking into our finances. She lived in my house. I paid the mortgage and all the utilities. She drove a car that was in my name. I paid for her insurance, her gas, our vacations, our dinners out. Her small paycheck from the art gallery was her fun money. My income was our life money. I had been supporting a parasite and she was planning to kill the host after one last big meal. My lawyer, a sharp, non-nonsense guy named Frank, confirmed my next steps. She has no legal claim to your house or your assets as a girlfriend. Your only vulnerability is if you voluntarily give her a large sum of money. The entire plan hinges on you agreeing to pay those loans. So, you're going to agree. That was the key. I had to let her think she was winning. I had to walk her right up to the finish line, let her taste the victory, and then pull the rug out from under her so hard she wouldn't know what hit her. So, I started playing the part. A few days after I found the text, I brought it up. We were making dinner. I sighed dramatically and said, "You know, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about your loans, about us starting our life as a team." She turned to me, her eyes wide with fake hope. "You have?" "Yeah," I said, "and I don't want that hanging over us. It's my wedding gift to you. I'm going to pay them off." She burst into tears. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. She threw her arms around me, sobbing about how I was the most generous, wonderful man alive. She immediately called her mom to tell her the news. I could hear her mother's triumphant squeals through the phone. The fish had taken the bait. "There's just one thing," I added after she hung up. "I don't want to just wire the money. This is a huge moment for us. I want to do it properly. I want to have a dinner, a celebration with our parents. I'll have my bank draw up a cashier's check for the full amount, and I'll present it to you that night in front of our families. A real symbol of us starting our new life together." She was ecstatic. A public ceremony of her victory. It was more than she could have dreamed of. She thought I was being romantic. I was just setting the stage. The dinner was last night. A private room in the best restaurant in town. Claire and her parents were on one side of the table. My parents were on the other. Claire was glowing, absolutely radiant. Her mom looked like a cat that had just swallowed a canary. Her dad, a decent guy who I now realize was completely clueless, just looked happy for his daughter. We went through the motions. Small talk, wine, appetizers. Claire and her mom kept exchanging little knowing smiles. My parents were talking about how excited they were for the wedding. Then, after the main course, I stood up. I had a single envelope in my hand. As you all know, I began. "I've asked you here for a special reason. Claire and I are about to start a life together, and I wanted to begin that life on the right foot. Claire, your student loan debt has been a huge burden on you, and because I love you, I want to lift that burden. So, as my wedding gift to you, I am paying off your entire student loan debt." My parents smiled, impressed by the gesture. Claire's dad clapped me on the shoulder. Claire and her mom were practically vibrating with joy. I opened the envelope, but I didn't pull out a check. I pulled out a single piece of paper. It was a printed, blown-up screenshot of the text message she had sent me 2 weeks ago. I laid it on the center of the table for everyone to see. "Don't worry, once he pays off my student loans, I'll leave." The silence that fell over that room was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Claire's face went from radiant joy to absolute, bone-white horror in a split second. Her mother looked like she had been slapped. My parents stared at the paper, then at Claire, their faces a mask of confusion and disgust. Her father read the text and the color drained from his face. He just looked at his daughter, then his wife, and the dawning realization was painful to watch. "This was never a wedding," I said, my voice cold and even. "It was a con, a very well-planned con, I'll admit. Your mother should be proud." I then pulled out a second set of papers. They were copies of the text conversations between Claire and her mom, the ones where they planned the whole scheme. I handed a set to my parents and a set to her father. "I believe these will answer any questions." "You might have," I said. Claire started sobbing, a pathetic, gasping sound. "Mark, no, it's not what it looks like. I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, cutting her off. "You explained it all perfectly in your texts. The wedding is off. We are over." I looked at her dad. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this. You raised a daughter, but your wife raised a con artist." Then I stood up. "Mom, Dad, let's go." We walked out of that restaurant, leaving them to sit in the wreckage. The fallout began before I even got to my car. A hysterical voicemail from Claire screaming and crying. Then a text, "You have ruined my life." My reply was simple. No, I just stopped paying for it. I got home and all her stuff was already gone. I'd had movers pack it up and deliver it to her parents' house while we were at dinner. The locks were changed. The digital T-code was erased. For the past 24 hours, my phone has been a war zone. I finally just blocked her number and her mom's. But I got one last desperate voicemail from a blocked number this morning. It was her. "Mark, please," she sobbed. "You can't do this. I made a mistake, a horrible mistake. My mom. She pushed me. Please, I'm going to go to your parents' house. I'm going to talk to them. They love me. They'll make you listen." She thinks this is a negotiation. She thinks she can deploy her fake tears and manipulate my parents. She has no idea who my father is. She has no idea what happens when you try to con a family of architects. She's about to try and reason with the man who taught me how to spot a fatal flaw from a mile away. Hey everyone, it's Mark, the OP from the story about the student loan scheme. First of all, the response to my first post was insane. I read hundreds of your comments and it felt good knowing I wasn't crazy for how I handled things. A lot of you were asking for an update, especially about what would happen when my ex-fiancée Claire tried to confront my parents. Well, she did. It, and the result was more spectacular than I could have ever planned. So, here's the final chapter. After the dinner, where I exposed everything, I went completely dark. I blocked Claire and her mom on everything. The silence was incredible. My parents, on the other hand, were getting the full court press. My mom told me Claire had left her a dozen tearful, rambling voicemails spinning a tale about how it was all a huge misunderstanding and how her mother had pressured her into a stupid joke. My mom wasn't buying a word of it. I had already warned them about Claire's final desperate threat from her last voicemail that she was going to show up at their house. My dad's only response was a calm, "Let her come." It happened on Saturday. I was at my own place trying to enjoy a quiet weekend when my dad called me. His voice was calm, but I could hear a steel edge to it that I knew well. "Mark," he said, "the demolition crew has arrived." He put the phone on speaker and set it down on the table in his study right next to the front door. I was about to have a front row seat. I heard the doorbell ring. I heard my mom open the door. Her voice was polite but frosty. "Claire, we weren't expecting you." Then I heard Claire, her voice thick with fake tears. "I am so sorry to bother you. I had to talk to you. I had to explain. Mark won't speak to me and he's not thinking clearly. He's throwing everything away over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding when it's written in black and white, Claire." A deep voice cut in. That was my dad. He had stepped into the entryway. "My son showed us your texts. All of them." Claire started sobbing harder. But that wasn't me. That was my mother. She's the one who is obsessed with my loans. She put all those ideas in my head. I love Mark. I would never hurt him. You know me. You know I love him. My dad let her finish. The silence stretched for a few seconds. Then he said, "I am an architect, Claire. My son is an architect. We build things, buildings, relationships, families. And the first rule of building, anything that is meant to last, is that you must have a solid foundation. You don't build on sand. You don't build on lies. And you certainly don't build on a blueprint of deceit and fraud." It wasn't fraud. She wailed. It was a mistake. "Was it a mistake when you texted your mother that you'd stay for a year to make it look good before leaving?" my dad asked, his voice sharp as glass. "Was it a mistake when you wrote that once you were debt-free, you would have options and wouldn't be trapped anymore? That doesn't sound like a mistake. That sounds like a meticulously designed plan, the kind of plan an architect can appreciate. From a technical standpoint, Morally, however, it is repugnant. He wasn't yelling. He was dissecting her piece by piece with surgical precision. "You didn't come here to explain," my dad continued. "You came here to execute the next phase of your plan. You failed to manipulate my son. So now you are attempting to manipulate his parents. You see us as another structural weakness you can exploit, but you are mistaken. This family is not a house of cards." Just as Claire was about to launch into another round of excuses, I heard a car pull up outside. Then another knock at the door. My mom opened it again. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she muttered. It was Claire's parents. Her father, John, was in the lead, looking flustered. Her mother, Susan, was right behind him, her face a mask of practiced concern. "We are so sorry to be here like this," John began, trying to sound reasonable. "Our daughter is a wreck, as you can imagine. This has all been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I think Mark may have overreacted." My dad cut him off. "Overreacted? John, I saw the texts. Your wife coached your daughter step by step on how to commit financial fraud against my son. Did you know about this?" John puffed up his chest, trying to look indignant. "Of course not. I'm as shocked as you are. Susan was just trying to help Claire with her financial anxiety. Her methods were misguided, but her heart was in the right place. I had to give it to him. He was a good actor. At the restaurant, I'd almost felt sorry for him. I thought he was a clueless victim in his wife's and daughter's scheme. But my father has been designing and negotiating contracts for 40 years. He can spot a lie from a mile away. So, you're telling me," my dad said slowly, "that your wife and daughter have been planning this for over 6 months, and you, her husband and father, had absolutely no idea. You live in the same house, you share finances, and you never once had a single conversation about a plan to extract $150,000 from my son." "I am a busy man," John said dismissively. "I don't get involved in their day-to-day drama." "I see," my dad said. Then he delivered the final blow. "That's interesting, because I took the liberty of having a conversation with my son's lawyer this morning. He was quite interested in the legal definition of conspiracy to commit fraud. It's a fascinating subject. He mentioned that in cases like this, investigators will often look at a family's complete financial records, phone records, bank statements, everything to determine who was aware of the plan. It's amazing what a forensic accountant can uncover. The threat wasn't overt, but it was crystal clear, and it worked." John's face went white. Susan let out a little gasp. "Now, this is an overreach," John stammered, his composure finally cracking. "There is no need to involve lawyers." "Isn't there?" my dad countered. "Your daughter tried to steal a sum of money that would represent a down payment on a house. That's not a misunderstanding. That is grand larceny in a pretty dress. And you, by your own admission, either knew and did nothing, which makes you complicit, or you were so willfully ignorant of this scheme being hatched under your own roof that it amounts to gross negligence. Either way, you have no moral high ground here." He then turned his attention back to Claire. "You came to this house looking for an ally. You will not find one here. You targeted my son because you thought his kindness was a weakness. You saw his stability as an opportunity. You are a predator, and you are no longer welcome in this family or in this house. The engagement is over. The relationship is over. You will have no further contact with my son. If you attempt to contact him or us again, we will pursue a restraining order. Is that clear?" Claire just stood there speechless, her fake tears dried up, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. She had been so certain she could manipulate them. She had walked into what she thought was a negotiation and found herself in a demolition. "Now," my dad said, his voice dropping to a final, dismissive tone, "I suggest you and your family leave. You have a great deal to discuss, I imagine." I heard the door close. My dad picked up the phone. "Are you still there, Mark?" "I'm here," I said. My voice was a little shaky. "It's done," he said. "The site is clear." The aftermath was even more satisfying. John, terrified that my dad would actually follow through and that his own shady finances might come to light, completely imploded. He and Susan had a massive fight right there in my parents' driveway. He blamed her for the plan failing. She blamed him for not being a better actor. Claire was left with nothing. Her parents are apparently on the verge of divorce. Their own marriage built on a foundation just as rotten as the one she tried to build with me. Her father has cut her off financially, furious at the public humiliation and the risk she exposed him to. So Claire is now back at home in a house at war with itself, with no fiancé, no job that can cover her bills, and $150,000 of student loan debt that is still and will forever be entirely hers. She didn't just lose a fiancé, she lost her entire support system. She gambled everything on a perfect plan and she lost it all. The demolition is complete.